Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into Ezekiel, the 41st chapter. And similar to Ezekiel, the 40th chapter, this is a continuation, in which Ezekiel is basically receiving this vision of the temple, and the design and all of that, which the angel, by the commandment of the Lord, is showing him. And so, as we went through, in the previous chapter, the angel went around and measured the different gates, the measurements of the chambers, the design, and all of that. All right, so picking up from there, this is Ezekiel, as you can see in the headline, the inner temple. All right, now this is Ezekiel chapter 41, verse 1. And as we were using this video here, which, like I mentioned in the previous lesson, that this is just a depiction, based off of whoever created this video's interpretation of the design. But it's helpful, to give you a visual. All right, so this is Ezekiel chapter 41, verse 1. And let's take a look here. So it says afterward, and let me actually take it back a little bit to where we left off in the verse in chapter 40, right? So in chapter 40, it led us all the way up onto the stairs before the that you actually go into the temple. Okay, I believe the holy place is what it is. So here you see the door, and as we read in Ezekiel 41:1, afterward he brought me to the temple and measured the posts 6 cubits broad on the one side and 6 cubits broad on the other side, which was the breadth of the tabernacle. Now, and you can see this showing it here, right? You got the left post, the right post, 6 cubits long, 6 cubits long. Now, what I want to do is pull up, let's see, tabernacle in the wilderness. Let's see if we can have some similar designs. Yeah, these are not bad. Maybe we'll go with this one. So here's an example. Now, this was what they were able to do in the wilderness. And obviously afterwards, or at least in this depiction that is being showed in this vision that Ezekiel is receiving, it was a more refined version, right? But the point here is, with this tabernacle, which was how it was designed in the wilderness, you could see that outside you first had this outer wall, right? And then you had the court out here where the sacrifices would take place. You had the altar, of burnt offerings, and that would be here. And I believe there was another altar of incense within. And if I remember correctly, this was the holy place, right, where you would actually enter. And within this area, you had the table with the shewbread, the menorah, the altar of incense, and so on and so forth in here. And in a certain part of this area, you had the Holy of Holies, which the high priest was allowed to go into that area once a year. And that is where you had the Ark of the Covenant and so on. So when we go coming back here, this is sort of like the entrance into that holy place, which is like this actual, the actual building itself. So let's go back and take a look here. So as you can see, 6 cubits and the width 10 cubits. Okay. And let's go to verse 2, as we just saw here. It says here, and the breadth of the door was 10 cubits, and the sides of the door were 5 cubits on the one side and 5 cubits on the other side. So that's why you saw that 10 over here. If this is the door, you had 10 cubits this way, and then, as it says, the sides of the doors were 5 cubits on the one side and 5 cubits on the other side, which the the video shows here and here. And he measured the length thereof 40 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits. Verse 3. And he then went he inward and measured the post of the door 2 cubits, and the door 6 cubits, and the breadth of the door 7 cubits. So it says here he went in inward and measured the post of the door 2 cubits, and the door 6 cubits. So let's take a look at these measurements here. But I think this is what we're seeing here is actually probably going maybe more into verse 4, but let's see. All right. So it says here, and so as he's showing here, well, let me go back a little bit. The most holy, right? Which what I was describing over here, the holy of holies. Once you actually enter the holy place, you had a section in the back, which was the holy of holies, here referred to as the most holy. Okay. And so at least I think that's what he is depicting here, according to verse 3, as the inward being past, once you go into the holy place, and then you measure the actual entrance to the holy of holies. All right, and so that's where you have and he went inward and measured the post of the door 2 cubits. So right there, 2 cubits, 2 cubits, and it makes sense, right? Because the first post was at the other entrance. And the breadth of the door 7 cubits, as you can see right here. All right, I think there's one more, right? 6 cubits, and the breadth of the door 7 cubits. So the actual space between these two posts, 6 cubits and 7 cubits on this side. Verse 4. So he measured the length thereof 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits, before the temple. And he said unto me, This is the most holy place. Verse 5. After he measured the wall of the house, and like I mentioned before, this is the beauty of technology, right? Where you can sort of design these things, but you can make these edits to where you can get a better, a clear picture or image as to when you're measuring certain parts, where is it and how does it look from within and without, right? So verse 5, after he measured the wall of the house 6 cubits, which is right here, in terms of thickness, and the breadth of every side chamber 4 cubits, which we're seeing over here, as you can see, area right here, round about the house on every side. And that's why this measurement it goes all around. Okay, verse 6. And the side chambers were 3, one over another, and 30 in order. And they entered into the wall, which was of the house, for the side chambers round about, that they might have hold. But they had not hold in the wall of the house. Okay, so let's read that again. And the side chambers were 3, one over another. And as you can see, he's put it almost like 3 stories, right? One layer down here, one layer over here, one layer over here. Where are we? One over another, and 30 in order. So as you can see, counting from this side, because it says it was roundabout, if you had one over here, you would all the way across to the end over there, which is 30. And where we at? In order, and they entered into the wall, as you can see, because remember how he depicted this, right? If we go back a little bit, you see how the building is covered. So the things we're seeing are what's actually inside the actual building. All right, so let's go forward just a little bit. Cool. So continuing in verse 6, and they entered into the wall which was of the house for the side chambers round about, that they might have hold, but they had not hold in the wall of the house. All right, verse 7. Or I guess maybe we're still on verse 6. Okay, now we're on verse 7. And there was an enlarging and a winding about still upward to the side chambers. Now, just a footnote while going through this, this is just for depiction's sake, right? Like when you're reading the scriptures and you come across these kinds of chapters, it's not the end of the world. I mean, your salvation isn't based on whether you can accurately pinpoint which measurement of the temple was this cubits long and how much is a cubit and all that. These are just, they're part of the scriptures for record's sake, and for context, but at the end of the day, these chapters like this, they're pretty much just kind of like read-throughs. But anyway, let's keep on going, right? So this is Ezekiel 41 and 7. And there was an enlarging and a winding about still upward to the side chambers, for the winding about the house went still upward round about the house. Therefore the breadth of the house was still upward, and so increased from the lowest chamber to the highest by the midst. And so if we take a look here, let me see if the measurements are on here. Okay, the measurements are not on there, but let's just keep taking a look. So you can see some stairs in here, a turning around upward and upward for the winding passage. Widening out, widening out. Verse 8, I saw also the height of the house round about. The foundations of the side chambers were a full reed of 6 great cubits. So you can see right there, 6 great cubits. This might have to include verse 9. The thickness of the wall was for the side chamber, without was 5 cubits, and that which was left was the place for of the side chambers that were within. Verse 10, and between the chambers was the wideness of 20 cubits round about the house on every side. So as you can see here, 20 cubits, 20 cubits, 20 cubits. And it goes to show you the meticulous design of the Lord, right? It's very specific, when it comes to, what he requests. Now, it also goes to show you as to why, or an additional factor as to why the actual destruction of the temple, was very devastating whenever it happened, because this wasn't just any ordinary temple. This was a house, as we thought of it, for our power. Verse 11, and the doors of the side chambers were toward the place that was left, and one door toward the north, and another door toward the south, and the breadth of the place that was left was 5 cubits round about. So north, south, the entrance of the side chamber. Cool. And you can see the measurements, 5 cubits, 5 cubits. Verse 12, now the building that was before the separate place at the end towards the west was 70 cubits. And as you can see here, I think it's 70 cubits broad, and the wall of the building was 5 cubits thick round about, which I believe is, depicted over here, and the length thereof 90 cubits. So basically just giving you the measurements of that building. Verse 13, so he measured the house 100 cubits long, and the separate place, and the building with the walls thereof, and 100 cubits long. So basically he took the measurement of the whole place, and you can see those right there. Nothing too special about that. And I believe that also covered verse 14 and 15 as well. And also the breadth of the face of the house, and of the separate place toward the east, 100 cubits. Verse 15, and he measured the length of the building over against the separate place which was behind it, and the galleries thereof on the one side, and on the other side 100 cubits, with the inner temple and the porches of the court. The doorposts and the narrow windows, and the galleries round about on their 3 stories, over against the door, sealed with wood round about, and from the ground up to the windows, and the windows were covered. Verse 17, to that above the door, even in onto the inner house, and without, go back a little bit, there you go, to that above the door, even onto the inner house, and without, and by all the wall round about within and without by measure. Verse 18, and it was made with cherubims and palm trees, so that a palm tree was between a cherub and a cherub, and every cherub had 2 faces. So you can sort of see that design. That's why it says it was in the inner house without, in the inner house within and without. Okay, so you can see the designs, palm trees, cherub or cherubim, palm tree, cherubim. That's sort of like the design pattern. Verse 19, so that the face of a man was toward the palm tree on the one side, and the face of a young lion toward the palm tree on the other side. See that right there. It was made through all the house round about. From the ground onto above the door were cherubims and palm trees made, and on the wall of the temple. Verse 21, the posts of the temple were squared, and the face of the sanctuary, the appearance of the one as the appearance of the other. The altar of wood was 3 cubits high, and the length thereof 2 cubits, and the corners thereof, and the length thereof, and the walls thereof were of wood. And he said unto me, this is the table that is before the Lord Yahweh. So you can see the measurements there. And notice that these altars all have that horn, like structure on their corners. And that's also mentioned when you read about the different sacrifices, because some required you to dip blood, on the horns of the altar. Verse 23, and the temple and the sanctuary had 2 doors. And so you can see 2 doors right there. And the doors had 2 leaves apiece, 2 turning leaves, 2 leaves for, let's go back, 2 leaves for one door, and 2 leaves for the other door. Verse 25, and there were made on them, on the doors of the temple, cherubims and palm trees, like as were made upon the walls. And there were thick planks upon the face of the porch without. Verse 26, and there were narrow windows and palm trees on the one side and on the other side, on the sides of the porch and upon the side chambers of the house, and thick planks. And as you can see, whoever made this video did their best. Okay, but this is pretty much where the 41st chapter ends, and then it goes into the last parts, which is the 42nd and 43rd chapters, which are in here. But this brings us to the end of this video, and like I mentioned before, it's mainly sort of like a read-through. There's not really much of a breakdown going on in these chapters. There is a chapter or 2 before the end of the book of Ezekiel where there is a spiritual breakdown or meaning behind it, but for the most part with these designs, it's pretty much just measurements, but nevertheless, Lord willing, it was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash, and until next time, Shalom.